Hello, BFA staff and faculty. My name is G.E. Creech, and I'm currently earning a BFA in production design. Today I'm going to present my thesis, Magical Realism, Pathogenic Storytelling in Production Design. Magical realism is defined as an artistic genre in which realistic narrative and naturalistic techniques are combined with surreal elements of dream or fantasy. Films that are designed with magical realism convey a deeper, empathetic association to human emotion through color, symbolism, and thematic connection to the narrative. This thesis is my artistic thought in film and interpretation of story, and within my own work, I use these tools to create stunning and emotive moments while aiding the storytelling in my own medium. The term magical realism first appeared in 1798 in German philosopher and novelist's notebook. Within his notes, this term came with a concept: two kinds of prophets who might live outside the boundaries of enlightened discourse without losing touch of the real. One of the kinds of prophets was a magical idealist, and the other kind was a magical realist. The definition of magical idealism in Romanticism and Romantic writing is forming the world into a work of art. This idealist kind of prophet had to be familiar with understanding and decoding signs in nature and fully examining reality and to understand how it works. Magical realism came back as a point of discussion in Germany when Franz Roh wrote about paintings returning to realism after the Expressionist movement. Commenting on this switch of genres, Roh writes how Expressionism exaggerates fantastic extraterrestrial objects, while the modern post-expressionist movement is a dreamscape faded away and a clear reality is before us. His definition of magical realism in painting was that everyday objects are endowed with a sense of mystery and unreality. In the 1920s in Italy, poet and writer Bontempelli was the creator of magical realism. Under fascist rule, he writes how when humanity restarts, we should recreate our myths and not those of earlier eras. When asked how to recreate these myths, he stated that magical realism is an art, not as an imitation of reality, but as an exploration of mystery and of daily life as an adventure. In the 1960s, on the other side of the world, the genre of magical realism was created in narrative writing in Latin America. Alberto Rios writes that the term magical realism is connected to a Spanish phrase, Rio Maravilloso. Translated, it means the marvelous reality. Within these stories, he points out how different every person can interpret a word in their culture and language and come out with a different meaning. Connecting the narrative genre to art and surrealism, Pablo Picasso speaks about this difference in interpretation with the comparison of a green bird to a green salad. He says, "Reality is more than the thing itself. I always look for the super reality. Reality lies in how you see things. A green parrot is also a green salad and a green parrot. He who makes it only a parrot diminishes reality. A painter who copies a tree blinds himself to the real tree. I see things otherwise. A palm tree can become a horse." Using dreams and the unconscious, surrealist symbolism in these paintings reflect pathos within the viewer, which is also what magical realism achieves. Production design techniques and philosophy of magical realism can be seen in early film with surrealist art films and German expressionist films. Surrealist films were early to express magical realism in production design. This can be seen in the film Un Chien Andalou by Salvador Dali and Luis Buñuel. While the artistic merit of this film focuses on the newfound Freudian thought through dreams and symbolism, the production design works hard to accompany it. This could be from ants coming out of a hole in the hand or dead cows stuffed in pianos with two men attached at the end. While the meaning and the story aren't clear, literal meaning and physical VFX showed the world how far art in the film could go. This idea of magical realism in film can be seen in the era of German Expressionism. Production design applied this art style and aided the camera as well by painting shadows on the actual set to create illusions of lighting. These shadows and angles put the audience in the story's heart, very expressive and intense. These attributes of this art style give the feeling of fear, unease, and suspense. These very literal sets, with Gothic and symmetrical designs, including illusions of light, connect to magical realism by being an accepted world by the characters and therefore the audience. Last semester, I was the production designer on Reed Carson's D3 film, Bullets Made of Wildflowers. The film follows Clementine, a girl who is mourning over her best friend Clay, and as a result of her grief, a flower grows from her head. The main themes/topics of this film that the script gave me to work with were personal perseverance, dealing with grief, and embracing a mental state of sorrow. In turn, I wanted to take these themes and topics and then understand them as tones and moods to visualize. With Clementine's apartment in mind, I wanted to communicate that she was happy and full of passion. Nothing was standing in her way. I used bright colors, drag queen posters, wall decorations, and costumes to sell this to the audience. Later, when she goes through the mourning period, the apartment becomes a feeling of being alone and full of grief. I utilized empty green bottles, candles, greenery, and flowers to take her home from a bright, happy space to a vigil-like environment. The visual theme of greenery is supposed to be a comfort to Clementine as she goes through her own process. When working on the funeral decoration for the film, unable to secure an expensive urn or casket, I chose to show Clay's presence in the space in a different way. Using purple wildflowers throughout the film to represent Clay, I took combat boots and filled them with dirt with flowers sticking out of them. I felt this simple fix helped reiterate their protesting, martyr nature and their youth. The makeup of this scene was over-the-top black tears smudged over everyone's face and coming down in a cathartic, German expressionism-looking manner. While these bright colors contradict the normal decor for a funeral, for the story and for the tone, I wanted to make the funeral more lively so that Clementine's reaction would be more noticeable and impactful, contrasting with the bright colors. With these small, impactful visual changes, magical realism aided my telling of the story and my creative process. In the beginning of this semester, I was brought onto the practicum script See Me as the production designer. The story follows a young boy, Benji, and his brother Monty living in a cutthroat world. Monty is involved with sketchy people and dangerous situations. This comes to a climax when Benji gets in the middle of a deal. A very big hope that the director and I shared was wanting a point of view from Benji as he learns right from wrong and how to live in the real world. At first I didn't think that magical realism was appropriate for the script, but because of the point of view from a young character like Benji, I started to imagine how much more impactful the visual storytelling would be. Thinking about how young he is at only 10 years old, I was wondering what colors would appeal best to communicate his age and innocence. I took the primary colors yellow, red, and blue and desaturated them to a point where they looked distorted together. In the design of the brothers' apartments, surrounded by murky greens and browns, Benji's bleak but colorful world is hidden and safe. The theme of knowing right from wrong and wanting to show an innocent point of view brought me back to the building stones of a good moral compass: children's stories and using animal motifs. The stories are used to hyperfixate on what determines right from wrong and learning from mistakes. I wanted to implement these animals as surrounding characters that Benji learns from. Continuing with the animal motif, I designed the wall to have two different wallpapers. The first underneath layer of wallpaper is an animal wallpaper. These animals are designed after the whimsical illustration of children's books. The second wallpaper that the audience primarily sees copies a forest pattern, showing the animal designs through multiple rips in the wall. This was so the apartment could live and breathe like a fox den or hideaway for both of them. Monty communicates through actions and dialogue not to let anyone into the apartment after he leaves, which led me to think of the apartment as a fox den and the brothers as foxes. There's a movie that you can remember feeling strongly about. You don't know how they did it, but you were convinced to feel something and attach yourself. The question that anyone on a film team has to answer is, how do you interpret the story and show/tell that with the camera? As I've been polishing and continuing to train my design skills, I have found in the search for my personal creative process has always included magical realism to help me find the answer to that question.